So we are here to honor our dear Patricia Meadors today. Um, she's been such a treasure in the lives of all of us, and we would like to share some of her stories and some of the things we've learned from her. So we're coming together today to be with you in love and memory of Pat.
Thank you, Ali. Should I
Yes,
say something?
yes, please.
I I wasn't at the last memorial, so I'm not as prepared or experienced in this. I wasn't able to come to Ian's because I was really very affected by his loss. But in the case of Pat, I have such joy that she has been able to leave her 100-year-old body and be able to join the light, and be out there to give us guidance, to be with Mary and Jiro and Ian and Christina and Lynn and all the people who have made such contributions to Jinshin Jitsu and have also been a big part of Pat's life. Um, I want to mention something that Jody would like to be here also. Over the past 15 years, Jody has really taken care of Pat as the daughter that Pat never had, and so I just want to express my gratitude to Jody, but also she wants to send her love to everybody and her deep love of Patricia. Jody just heard from the family that Patricia's wish was for her ashes to be dropped over the Superstition Mountains in Arizona here. They're going to return her ashes to Arizona. If you've been to the office and if you look out the windows on the east side of the office, you see the McDowell Mountains, and then a little bit behind, off to the right, you see the Superstition Mountains, which are kind of a famous Arizona mountain range. And Pat and Mary would gaze out the windows when they were working on people and look at these mountains for years and years. And that's where Pat has chosen to spend eternity. So, with such deep regard and love for a person who's taught me about unconditional love in a way that um, very rare in the world. I mean, we receive it from our parents, but the unconditional love that Pat had was for everybody, and she was truly the expression of this love that we all can be. So God bless you, Pat, on your journey. Love you so much. I'm holding my ring finger, and you guys, you can join me, but um, I forgot that part. Carry on.
Thank you, David.
My memories of Pat, that she was such a powerful presence, but she did it so gently. So she brought both those extremes together, and she was always there as this strength of power and gentility. And I learned a lot from that, the ability to be both. I got to know her for the first time when I was in Arizona and getting sessions for a week. So she taught me again about the safety energy lock number 9. After about 3-4 sessions, I said to her, "Oh, Pat, what would you recommend for self-help?" She had no response. So I let it go. And then on the last day at the end, she left me a little note on the table. And she said, "Anita, dear, I think your 9s need a little attention." That was it. It was perfect. And she's still teaching me again today about the safety energy lock number 9. Her touch was notoriously gentle. Everyone talked about how gentle she was in her touch. And yet again, that irony, it packed a powerful wallop. At the end, you couldn't get off the table, but you felt like she had barely touched you and you were looking around to see what she was doing. And sometimes she was a little nodding off at the end of the table, but it didn't matter. At the end of every session, you just said, whoa, what happened? So she was nicknamed the Velvet Sledgehammer and the Silent Samurai. So that was the power of her strength. And she was always there with that strength. She didn't need to say much. And yet she did say, but whatever she said was to the point, was the essence of life and Jinshin Jyutsu, of what we can all learn from. So in her honor, as in Ian's honor, I would like to hold the 9s because she taught me about my 9s. So let's just hold our thumbs. Left thumb with our right hand. The meaning of the number 9. I am the past. I am the present. I am the future. I am. Thank you, Pat, for being that powerful, quiet presence in all of our lives.
I don't have a lot of words for Pat because she didn't have a lot of words. And like Anita said, she was always speaking. When she did speak, it was really the essence. And I remember one time she said to me, I don't get tired because all day long, all I see is perfection. And, you know, Patricia, what a person she was. I just see her image so strongly in the office, walking around in her high heels and her little bouffant hairdo, all dressed up. And I dressed up today to honor her, actually. She was very into fashion. In fact, she and Mary were both into fashion. They used to go to, I think it was the Borgata. They had their favorite shops and they'd be all dressed up and they were like dressed up little angels, you know? And I think Pat is the best example, the most real example I have of enlightenment. I don't know anybody that I've experienced who is more present and just in the moment And she truly taught me a lot about Jin Shin Jyutsu just simply because she was the living example of Jin Shin Jyutsu. She was it. And one last story I have about her. Well, I used to go and have sessions at the office as well with Mary and Pat. And Pat would tell me about, she had that a little round trampoline in her garage, and she jumped on that trampoline 100 times a day. And that's how she stayed in shape. So every time I'd go, I'd say, "Are you still jumping on the trampoline, Pat?" She'd say, "Yes." So, yeah, what a beautiful example. I'm incredibly grateful to her. She led by example. So in honor of Pat, I'd like to hold our 26s, the cosmic hug, which means total and complete, that which was, is, and will be.
I can hear Mary say, "Be the star you are." And for me, Patricia really was a star. She shined so brightly. Her smile would light up a room. She didn't have a large stature. However, she carried such energy with her. I agree with both my colleagues, Anita and Jill. The fact is that when she walked into a room, you knew she was present, even though she didn't say anything, because her light was so bright. For me, she was a wonderful example of Jin Shin Jyutsu and how to live every moment with the creator's art and embrace it in every action that you take. We would talk about food. And I think that when she talked about food, she would talk about it with the consciousness, right, of each moment and what bite she would eat and how important it was to nourish her soul, to nourish her body. And she would teach me that Jin Shin Jyutsu is not just about the session that I was receiving, but about everything in my life, because that's how I felt that she was incorporating Jin Shin Jyutsu into her life. And what a wonderful long life she has. And to honor 100 years. And she practiced in the office for such a long time, showing us it was really effortless reality. You know, to be able to practice Jin Shin Jyutsu into your late years of life, wow, without any effort, but still feeling that joy and that abundance. And with that abundance, we think about the tens. And Patricia had an abundant life with abundant energy, with abundant connection to everyone that came through the office and everyone that practices Jin Shin Jyutsu. If you had the great fortune of meeting her, you would know about that energy that she just shared with everybody in her quiet way. So let's hold our high 19s, since we can't hold our 10s, and open up that abundance so that we can receive the same abundant gift that she lived her life with, so that we can share that with each other and remember her every time we hold our high 19s. Thank you so much, Patricia, for everything that you have given me and everyone else.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. And it's an honor to be here with friends and family. There's a saying that when you kick an empty pot, it makes a lot of noise. And when you kick a full pot, it doesn't make any sound. And that's what I think about Pat. She was so full of spirit, full of knowledge and wisdom. And she didn't need to say it. She just lived it. And why don't we hold our 14s? And I say to hold our 14s because I remember getting a session from Pat once, and she said to me, I love to give everybody a 14 flow. And it was only years later that I realized that that didn't tell you anything. She would talk around things. So if you needed a 14 flow, she would say, you need a 14 flow. To me, at least, she'd say, hold your, that's what I like to do, so that it wouldn't make an imprint on you that there was something wrong. So she spoke in a very wise way to teach people. And what I know about her is her humility, that unless you really paid attention, you might miss her. And when she spoke, she would only say things that were positive or kind. And if you were talking about somebody in not so kind or positive way, she'd say, well, but to God, just turn it into something positive so that she didn't have to go down that road of judgment and criticism. And that to me was what I really gathered from her, is that she lived everything we talk about with Jinshin Jyutsu. She didn't need to tell us these lofty statements. She just was it. And you saw it in how she lived her life. And that's really the example we all need to be, because it's easy to tell people things, but it's a lot harder to actually live it in your life and to apply it every moment. And that's the unseen scene that Pat represented for me. And I had heard about her way before I met her from Mary talking about her at class, and I had this image of this, massive Buddha walking into a room. And then when I first met her, this is a tiny little lady, and she just was so quiet and kind. And I know personally for me that I always felt better being with her. She always was speaking kindly to me. She was always building me up, building my confidence up, supporting me in whatever I did, and just really acknowledging me. And I felt like she did that with everybody. And that was her goodness and her greatness. It wasn't about her, it was how I can serve. But she served in the humble way that you never knew that she was serving. She just did it. It's like you're at a restaurant and the food is placed before you and you never know how it got there, who cooked it, or what happened. And I think Pat did all of those things as an emissary of the Creator, and great partner, sidekick to Mary. And she looked up to Mary and always spoke about her so kindly. And for me, I don't believe Mary saw her less than herself. So, and those are the great beings that you meet in the world. They never tell you about themselves. They never speak about themselves in a way that you could forget, you know, where everything is coming from, where the transmission is coming direct from the Creator. So I give great honor to this glorious soul that I'm so grateful to have met in this life, and may she continue to bless all of us. Those of you who have not met her, those of you who have met her, may she be in your dreams, may she be with you when you give your sessions to yourself or to other people, and may she live on throughout all of history for us. Thank you, Pat.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Jody.
Thank you so very much, everyone, for coming to honor Pat. She was an incredible person. And she was so good to Mary, Aunt Helen, and my mom. Every weekend they'd go out for lunch, and it was wonderful. My family really enjoyed her a lot. She was spunky, though. She was gentle, kind, and loving, but she was a little bit spunky. And I think that's what we loved about her. I'm sorry I'm so emotional, but yeah. Thank you for letting me be here with you all.
You're very welcome.
Go ahead.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Jody.
I love you, David.
I love you too.
David, what year did Pat come to work with Mary?
Well, we moved out in 72, and Mary's first assistant was actually Betty Tanaka. Came out with Mary from Los Angeles. I believe Pat came towards the end of 1973, and end of 73 or 74. Betty lasted for about a year, and she needed to get back to a more active life instead of sitting next to a cot. She was still pretty young. So I think Pat has been with us since the end of 73, 74.
Yeah.
How did they meet?
Pat was a student of Mom's. She would come. My mom and dad got a little place in Palm Springs because my mom was so busy. They were trying to get out of town on the weekends. And then, you know, the story goes, within a couple of weeks, Mary had a full practice in Palm Springs. So we had to go to Palm Springs every weekend. But Pat was Mary's assistant. She would come to Palm Springs. She lived in Hemet, which was somewhere between Palm Springs and Los Angeles, and work with Mary as her assistant there in Palm Springs. So I do know one thing about Pat is Mary looked at Pat as one of her teachers because Pat really introduced her to Manly Hall. She brought her to the first Manly Hall lectures, and that became one of Mary's primary philosophical teachers. So Pat taught Mary a lot. There's no question.
Did they play golf together? Pat told me that they spend time on the golf course together, but your mother didn't play.
Well, those stories are exaggerated, but yes, they had a little time on the golf course together. It was mostly my dad and Pat's husband, Dean. But, you know, Mary and Pat had lessons. They both tried. Mary played a bit more than Pat, that's for sure.
David, did you tell everybody she's coming home to be scattered? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, I sure did. I let them know that he's going to be sprinkled over the superstitions. I don't know if I mentioned that they're going to get an airplane to sprinkle her.
Wow.
Yeah. So she'll be well sprinkled.
Wonderful.
This is a Sagittarius way. So she was the words that come to me as Jill and Anita and Susan was saying and Jed, it's flower, because she was so delicate, so, but at the same time so powerful. So she had this flower vibration. And also another word that comes to me is light, as you said, but the light in terms of not heavy, not, she was light, almost floating through the office, right? And the touch was light, and light because she brings this awareness, this consciousness, and help moving our awareness through our body. So it was, yeah. The first time I had a session with Pat was in 1995, when I went to Boulder, Now Know Myself class. Then it was the first time I was in the US, so I needed to go to Scottsdale to get to know Mary. And we went there, and I think we talked with David, and David arranged a session. It was the lunchtime of Mary and Pat, and they gave us, me and Vera, the session. And I had, as it was a very short session, I had both of them working on me at the same time for 10 or 20 minutes, I don't remember. So it was a very lucky and, yeah, first session with Pat and Mary working on me. It was quite an experience. And then I came back to the office to receive week sessions, and it was always like, oh, very profound, with this very light touch. Thank you, Pat, for being this wonderful Sagittarius. I am a Sagittarian also. And giving this example of life, and sharing so much of yourself to for all of us. Thank you very much.
I would like us to all hold our little fingers and connect to our heart function energy, heart being the seat of our spirit. And I experienced Pat's butterfly fingers in 2015 when I visited the office in Scottsdale. And during our session, we got chatting about Mary, and she just said, you know, Mary was my best friend, and I miss her every single day. And that was now, like, Mary had passed over 7 years at this stage. And I was really struck first by her honesty and the depth of her love and connection she had with Mary. So let's draw comfort in the fact that Pat is now back in spirit with Mary, her best friend, heart to heart once again. And thank you, Pat, for being your own testimony. And thank you for your service to Jinshin Jyutsu. May you rest in peace.
I'm not sure that I ever got the opportunity to hug Pat. I might have. I got the opportunity to be in photos with her. But anyway, let's Here you are, Pat. Here's the hug that maybe I never gave you. And there are so many adjectives that could describe my experience with Pat, or Patrick, as we sometimes affectionately called her. Oh gosh, impish. She had such a great sense of humor. Gentle. Some people called her the silent samurai when they received treatments. Fiercely loyal to Mary. And if you said something that Pat didn't agree with, you got the eye. And I got that a few times. Just one of the qualities that I always used to rag Pat about was what I considered her extreme modesty. If I have any Jinshin Jyutsu chops, I honed them whilst being on the table with Pat. She would give me little insights. She would show me things that Mary had suggested, and I learned an awful lot. And she would laugh. She had all kinds of stories that she would relate to me. And it was just a beautiful, innocent experience. I would say to Pat many times, you know so much, we should write a book, or you should, write a book. And she'd go, oh, I know nothing. I said, you know a lot, Pat. And she blew her cover in July of 2003, the very first Journey Continues, when we invited her to go up on the stage. And she said, oh, it'll be 5 minutes. Half an hour later, it was absolutely glorious. And Pat, your sun, your spirit shines still wherever you are resting now. Thank you for all those years. You gave so much. You're such a servant. And I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Had to make me cry.
It's becoming harder and harder for me to say anything. My first visit to Scottsdale was in March of 78. And Patricia was the person to give me my series of sessions as Mary was out of town teaching. I am here today as a result of that trip to Scottsdale, because my life was on the brink of passing on in those days. So I spent my 44th birthday with Patricia. And it was such an eye-opener for me. My last remembrance of Patricia was, I think, in 2015, when Majella was with us in Scottsdale. And I pulled up to a traffic light, and Pat passes me and turns the corner against a traffic light. And I don't know what speed, but it certainly wasn't normal speed.
Speed of light. We saw the dust behind her wheels.
It's true. I mean, Majella's there to confirm it. Oh my God. Yes. So everything that Jed said about Patricia is true. And the one thing that was I felt that she always wanted to be subservient, if that's a proper way of expressing it. But she was always in service, always wanting to be of service. My following visits to Scottsdale, I would probably stay at Motel 6, which wasn't too far away, and she would come and pick me up for my session. As I said, my first visits to Scottsdale was in 78, and it was over the Easter holidays. And her husband, Dean, was not coming home for Easter, so she spent Easter Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with me. So I received 14 sessions back to back with Patricia. That's why I'm here today. God bless you, Patricia. And let's hold our little finger, because her 13 flow was her magical touch, as far as I'm concerned. Gunairi and Boherlat. May you rest in peace. Amen.
So for me, it was important to be here, and I don't know why. I was thinking that first I'm going to tell you to read you, because this time I wrote you a little thing in French. I don't know why. Patricia didn't speak French, but for me it was very important to say first in French and after in English. And perhaps the first, if I have to choose the practice for Pat, my first idea is the center of the palm. So if you wish. So in French, Patricia is Patricia. Chère Patricia, chère amie, dès la première séance, votre présence et votre toucher sont restés dans mon cœur. Et depuis ce 1er septembre 1994, à chaque fois, une joie d'être auprès de vous et de recevoir vos séances. Patricia, intemporelle, vous êtes. Point. Dear Patricia, dear friend, from the very first session, your presence and your touch have remained in my heart. And since September 1st, 94, each time a joy to be with you, a huge joy to be with you and to receive your session. Patricia, intemporal, you are that.
I would like to offer to Patricia hold our 20 tools like a butterfly, pet butterfly, return home in peace, and be happy. Thank you so much for everything that I've learned with you. All my gratitude. Muchísimas gracias, Pat. Muito obrigada, Patrícia. Fly, my dear butterfly. Love you. Thank you.
So I'm very thankful that all of us are here today to give thanks. She left the planet on Thanksgiving, and we are thankful for your being with us. And as many of the teachers said, you lived a Jitsu life, and you've always been a true example of being the jumper cable, being the art. And we are all inspired and forever thankful. So as we continue, as we move on, sharing Mary's work, we will also continue sharing the quality of your presence that taught us so much through silence. Thank you, Pat. And thank you, everyone. Thank you all that are here with us today, live, watching from home, or even later on YouTube. We are very honored to share this moment with you. Even though it's a challenging time, it's all about love. Thank you.